ఈరోజు మనం వీడ్ అండ్ వీడ్ కంట్రోల్ చర్చించుకుందాం. Weed and weed control farm activities are designed to favor of the certain plants and animals to provide the food and fiber. But the same activities may also provide the good growing conditions for other plants and animals that harm them. These living things that compete with us for the food and the fiber or attack is directly or called the pest. Pests can be into the four main groups, namely insects, plasmides, ticks and the spiders, snails and slugs, vertebrates, vertebrates the birds and rodents, weeds, plant disease agents. These are the four weeds. What are the definition of the weed? Any plant vegetation excluding the fungi, interfering with the objectives or requirements of people. Plant growing where it is not the desired. Plant out of the place. Plant whose the economic value has not been discovered. Plant that extremely access in the useless of the unwanted poisonous. We depend on some women attitude. It differs from one person to another, from the farmer to engineer. Losses caused by the weeds, competition and yield reductions, added protection cost from the other pests, increased cost of labor and the equipments, poor quality of products, increase the water management problems, affect human health, lower and value. Through the loss due to the weeds or there will be weeds can also the turn use. The uses are as a forage, chicory, as green manure, croton spurious for paper and fiber, pulp, aquatic weeds, a source of the proteins, Shirella pyramids in crop breeding, Saccharum spontinum for flower and the medicine, Cypress rotens, Acaranthus aspera, the ching of the rose, Saccharum spontum, air pollution indicators, that is the wild mustard, chickweed, mainly SO2, as a vegetable, Phenopodium album, this area. The irrigation indicators of soil matches. What are the factors affecting of the competitive of weeds? Formulation effective weed control measures. It is the important to know about the survival mechanism of weeds that enables the flourish, the establishment and the distribution of weeds depend on their characteristic culture operation followed and the agroclonic conditions. The mechanism which is the enabled the weeds to be survived or the grown. The mechanism which enabled the weeds is the enormous seed production. Most of the weed species produce the large number of viable seeds, with the result even of the few weeds are the left in the field. They produce the enough seed for the infecting in the area of the next season. Vegetative reproduction, in addition to the reproduction of the seeds, perennial weeds like the cypress, rotan, Synon, delta, Icarnia, grasspeas, also multiply by the various vegetative means such as the nuts, rhizomes, bulbs, stolons, roots, and the stems. Reproduction by the vegetative means enable them to survive under the adverse conditions. These weeds are so controlled by ordinary and cultural operation. Seed dormancy and the longevity. Seeds are the most of the weed species exhibit one or other type of dormancy. Dormancy enables the seeds to survive in the soil for certain period as they germinate only under the favorable condition. Some of the weed species produce the dormant seeds while other seeds attain the dormancy. The seeds are the crop plants, weed seeds that remain viable for a long time and germinate. They get the favorable condition. Lotus seeds found in the lake of the Manchuria were the approximately 1,000 years old and the still viable. To determine the longevity of seeds, certain experiments conducted have the relieved the Monarchan species with the forest clay pots and the buried 8.2 and the 41 inches deep soil is the found in the seed dominancy, seed dispersal. Weeds spread from the place to place by the means of water, wind, man, and the animals. Seeds of various weed species have the one or the other special feature of the dissemination. Some are equipped with the parachute like the structure which makes the seed float in the way. Some seeds have the special structure to help them float. Long distance weed seeds are carried eventually along with the grain and other materials. Seeds of the weeds like the cochlear cleaning of the animal hair and the clothing of the hair carried to the other places. Often new weeds are introduced to the farm with the contaminated crop weeds. Adaptably, weed plants have the remarkable ability to adapt to the distributed environment. They can also thrive under the adverse conditions due to their morphological and physiological characters. Some of the weed plants have the unpleasant bad smell. They may also the spines and strip as which protect from the damage by the animals. The other characteristics. Adaptability. Weed plants are remarkable adaptability to adapt to the distributed environment. They can also thrive under the adverse conditions due to the morphological and physiological characters. Some of the weed plants have the unpleasant bad smell. What are the characters of the complete effect with the some of the crop plants? Properly synchronize the germination with the crop plants. Rapid establishment and growth of the seedlings. Competitive growth, habit and life sphere with the crop. Tolerant tissue shading the effects by the crop at the time of the establishment. Quick reason to available soil moisture and the nutrients. Adaptation to the most survey climate situation of the habit. Relative immunity to posting seed soil disturbance practices. Resistance to the herbicides that are in use. A classification of weeds. Mainly classification of weeds difficult. The period of the lifespan, life, and experience were taken into the basis of the classification. Lifespan weeds of the classified in three categories: annuals, biennials, and perennials. Annuals, these are the small herbs with the shallow roots and the weak stem and the propagated by seeds, which is produced abundantly after seedling. The annuals die away the seeds, germinate in the next season. For example, Agrimon mexicana and the Cleome viscosa fertilorescea are the only annual plants. Biennial beads are the less in a number, generally flower and the seed in the second season and the die. The first season die in the annuals, the second season die in the biennial. Some of them may flower in the first season itself. They live for the more than the 1 year, but not more than the 2 years. Example, Belinda, Ipomia, perennials. These are the two types of the apes and shrubs. There are well adapted to withstand the diverse condition. These species are the populated by seed and also by the underground stems, root and suckers. The wood stored in the underground pots helps in the put forth fresh shoots whenever the conditions are the favorable. For example, Cypress rotunda, some of the woody plants, these are the plants will usually competing with the more the desirable grasses in the grazing plants and the orchard. This type of the plants are the common in Western USA, Argentina, Australia, Hawaii. These woody plants are the frequently members of the native flora of the grazing lands, or perhaps the grazing land, most of its terrace, based on the angiosperm groups, narrow level weights. Weights also classified according to the two great angiosperm groups, monocotyledons and dicotyledons. This term refers to the members of the grass weeds, which includes the number of graminae. This may also include other monocotyledonous plants. These plants are usually low-growing and anemophilous. The apical meristem is protected by the sheathing leaf bases, which act as the effective barriers in herbicide the control measures. Annual forms in the abundant, but they are not into the troublesome in the perennial growth. Examples of some perennials are the Agrochlorine, Repsum, the sorghum, broad level weeds. These are the members of the dicotyledon groups annuals. The quick grows and the completed the tricycle within the single season. They produce the large quantities of seeds very short period. Examples: Amaranthus, biennials require the 2 years from the germination, flower, and seed production. Perennials, the plants renew growth their year after a year from the some root system. Most plants of these groups are the rounded, non-cultivated areas. Based on the special features of the weeds, the weeds are the classified into poisonous and parasitic and aquatic. Poisonous means these plants are the responsible for the death of the cattle every year to some of the extent, besides causing harm to children. And these plants grow along with the food or grasses. They will be cut and feed to the cattle infamously. Even if these plants are eaten by the cattle in small quantities in the animals become weak and unfit for work. The yield of the much cattle will be reduced. This the weeds may also cause the portion of the cattle. Children also poisoned by the eating the fruits. Datura phosphosa, the species of Datura are these are the poisonous, the both man and animals. All the parts of the plants is that toxic, but the seeds are the more toxic. The alphides, atropine and the isandra are the poisonous effect. Soranum agro is the force may cause the harm to children. Vitamina somnifera, the seeds contain alkaloid called somniferin, which is the poisonous. And Lacrona pulsea, this poisonous cattle. Parasitic weeds are the degenerates the species and many of them are devoid of green matter of leaves. They have efficient means of the propagation and seed dispersal. The seeds will remain the viable for the number of years. The seeds are the distributed in about the 10 families, out of the which 6 families contain the more tuberous weeds. So for the about the 2,500 species are the parasitic and safe plants recognized. Geologically, they are divided into the two groups: autotrophic, Orobanche, heterotrophic, Cascata. Autotrophic groups can be independent growth up to some of the extent. Examples are Loranthus species, where the heterotrophic are the complete parasite depending on the nutrients. No water is the from the plant. Cascata parasitic weeds are also classed by stem parasite and root parasites. The stem parasite, the Cascata compastrices, Castra kiloprum, Loranthus, the viscum. The root parasites are the Orobanche and Triga. Orobanche species that occurs in the tropical and subtropical areas. Pond weeds and the aquatic weeds. These plants grow in the tanks and the ponds and have the common characters, even though they belong to the various families. This is the become the environment. The plants are the adapted to thrive under the aquatic condition. The transpiration mechanism is the absent in the water conducting tissues and the root system are poorly developed. They have the special tissues for the storage of air commonly propagated to by the vegetative means. The damage done by these weeds to crops is considerably less when compared to the damage caused by the weeds variable lands. But these weeds may cause the considerable inconvenience. Drainage and irrigation channels may have the block or lifting of water may be difficult. The examples of the type of the weed where the Nymphia stellata typhus species, Piscium strychnia, Lemonicifera, malaria. What are the weed controls of method? The common saying, the ones of the prevention is the worth of the pound of cure. There also true weed control as such prevention of the entry of weeds into the country of the individual fields will be the first step in weed control. The following are the common preventive methods weed control. These are the clean seed. Do not feed the cattle anything having the viable weeds seeds. Manure having the viable weeds seeds should be not be the used. Mm, the cattle should not be the permitted to move directly from the weed infected fields to clean the areas. Clean the implements such as the harvest cleaners, tractors, wheels, and before taking them to other areas from the weed infested fields. Avoid use of the gravel, sand, soil from the weed infected areas. Clean the nurseries and keep them free from the weeds. Banks of the irrigation and drainage, the ditches must be kept in from the weeds. Keep corners, fields, the fence lines, roadsides, and railroads free of the weeds. Prevent the production of the wind seeds in any area. Mechanical method and filling method. This method can be used to the control animals in the and hoeing. This is the generally used in the garden fields, lawns. Tillage is the useful controlling the animals by animals and perennials. Tillage reduces the weeds seed population of the soil. This prevents the weeds seedlings from the producing the seeds and also encourage the germination of wheat and seeds, which will be destroyed on the later deep flowing helps in the bury of the seeds. Moving, this helps the prevent of the wheat seed production. This may also weaken up the food and the reservoir of the perennials. Heat that kills the living cells due to the coagulation of the protoplasm and inactivating the enzyme. The thermal depth point is the most plant cells in between the 40 to 55 degrees. Cropping and competition. Continuous cropping with the small cells the invariably results in the increase of the annual wheat population. Continuous cropping with the same crop encourages the pest and the disease. The areas where the crop plants get damaged by the insects will be invaded by the weeds. Weeds also can be controlled by the rising smoothing crops such as millets, sudden grass, buckwheat and the sweet clover, rapeseed and the barley, sorghum, alfalfa, coffee, clovers, and combination of tillage and competitive crops gives the encouraging of results. The crop nation in the following reduce the field growth, then taking the same crops. Basic crop is not the eradication but the reduction control of the physical principles are requirements and the qualities of the predators and parasite pathogen, the biological control. Specifically, the organism must feed in the or affect only stages of the death when this the species of an enemy. Free of the enemies must be free of its own predators and the parasites and be resistant to those the found in the new areas. Aggressiveness must be capable of the seeking out of the host for its environment, respecting successfully to locate the host plant. Effectiveness must be able to kill the weed or at least of the prevent its the reproduction in the direct or the indirect way. Reproductively must have the reproduce the capacity the sufficient to the overtake and increasing of the source species without the much when any reason control temporarily treated in the occurrence of the unfavorable weather condition. Producers involved in introducing the biological control agent. Specific weeds in the biological control. For example, in Australia, lantana species was controlled with the two petals, namely Octomena scabrensis in the Orcoplata gridae. The nets in the lantana bug Tilconomia scrupulosa is found effective in the controlling this weed. Quickly, for weed, a bunch of species was controlled with the Octoplastis October. Propensia Delaney was controlled by the Dr. Lopez and chemical methods of the herbicides. Herbicides are the relatively new tool in the mass effect of the controls that the use has the increased the rapidly since 1944 when the 2,4-D was the first used in the herbicide. Since that is the time it's the treated the chemical has the increased dramatically. Research during the first 3 decades has increased our knowledge about the weeds and their control. At the same time, many new chemicals have become available for using the weed control. The present there, there are few weed problems in which chemicals cannot help and the feasibility of their using the depend upon the cost benefit ratio. What are the advantages of the herbicides that can be applied at any season? Control at the early stage, kill the weeds, mimicry will move and the weed on grass and rice. Effective row spacing as well as the broadcast. Control lasts for the longer time. Convenient to use on spiny weeds. Safe on the erodible land where the tillage many accelerate the soil erosion. Kills the weeds in situ is the helping of the dimension of the seeds. Physical methods on the other end fragment of the weeds and the drag them the new seeds. Can be spread the easily and the reach the weeds during the restricted situation. Lower cost of the production of crops, greater yield for the unit area, few labor problems, greater possibility of the farm and mechanization, rich crop harvesting, lower Limitation of herbicide uses. There are the automatic signals stop the farmer who is the applying of the chemical. Next one, currently till the results of the crop spread, the crop that follows the rotation. Corruption doses may interact with the environment, produce the ununited results, drips in the cash flows runoff. Depending upon the diversity of the farming, the variety of the herbicides must be stopped from the control weeds. There is the physical owner who implements in the require the considerable require the considerable skill on the part of the use of the differentiation of weeds in the crop, proper doses at the time instant. Selection of the replacement of crop must be based on the tolerance herbicide present in the soil. Herbicide research and development require the very extensive testing with the which requires the large expenditure. Herbicides have been the misuse in the chemical welfare of the destroy many of the crops. Classification of the herbicides based on the chemical group: aliphatic, dolphin, and TCA herbicides, amides and the histoamides, alcar, butchar, the metalor, propamide, the propanar, arsenos, and MSME, crocodilic and benzoic and the phenylalanine, biofenfix and diachroma, bipyrimidines, dicquat, paraquat, carbonates, slum and thoro. This one is the phenoxy acids 2424D to 45D, ureas, diurean. Next one is the monourean, the pheral, methanobenzolane, and isoprene. Herbicides can also classify into different groups of the considering the various characters. User classifications: selective and non-selective herbicides. Selective mean propanil and dolphin, trifolin, 2,4-D. Non-selective is the paraquat, glyphosate, contact and translated systematic herbicides. Contact is the paraquat, translated glyphosate, 2,4-D. These are the weeds and weed control. Next topic is the cropping systems. Cropping system is the food production has the increased to keep the pace of the demand of the ever increasing population. There is a little likelihood of the extend the areas and the cultivation, but there is the possibility of the rising to or more crops per year through the multiple relay and the intercropping system, utilizing the available resources more efficiently than the before. Growing more than one crop in the sequence of the simultaneously as mixed crop and the ancient parasite invaded the Indian epics, mentioned the double cropping. The early periods of the objective of adopting such as the cropping practice was to the reduce the risk in the total crop failure due to the certain monsoons and have the variety of the products for the meeting the food requirement of the farmers, family feeding these animals, and the meeting of the financial requirement. The temporary cropping system, the cropping patterns use the farm and the interaction with the farm resources and the available technology, which is the makeup cropping pattern, the yearly sequence and the spatial arrangement of crops, the decision and active various products. So cropping, the one crop variety grown alone stands at the normal density synonymous with the solid planting in the opposite of the intercropping. Monoculture, continuous growing of the same crop on the land. Rotation, alternate cultivation of the crops and the one after another is the same land. One cycle may take the more years to complete. Multiple cropping, growing two or more crops in the same field in the year. Cropping index, The number of crops grown per year on the given area is the land the multiple by 1,000. Intercropping, growing the two or more crops simultaneously in separate rows in the same field. Crop intensification is to the terms both time and the spaces. There is the intercrop competition during the entire growth period at the part of the crop growth period. Mixed cropping, growth two or more crops simultaneously in separating rows on the same field. Crop intensification in terms of the both time and the space. There is the intercrop competition during the entire growth period as a part of the crop growth period. Strip intercropping, growing two or the more crops simultaneously in strips wide enough to the permitted independent cultivation but the narrow enough to the crops are interacting locally. Main or base crop is the one which is the plant of the optimum soil crop population in the intercropping situation in the second crop in the planted between the rows. Intercropping in dryland agriculture cropping patterns should be the will be adjusted in accordance with the available resource to utilize the scarce rainfall efficiently. This needs to increase the cropping intensity for a unit area for the unit time. As the moisture is available only for the limited period in the year, there is no scope for the growing second crop in the sequence. Under such conditions and adaptation, intercropping systems as the provide the more or portability, profitability the growing one or two crops in the sequence. As the intercropping make it is the possible for utilizing the growing season fully and the other growth resources like light, water, and the plant nutrients. That is the more fully utilized the extending the timely cover and by the fuller of use of the solar energy reaching the field at any given point of time to the variation in the height of the crops. The use of the nutrients and the moisture is likely to be all, the, all the more complete because the different crops in the intercropping use of the moisture and the nutrients from the different depths of and the layers of the soil and because of the less run of the what are the advantages of intercropping? Maximum utilization of the resource like the sunlight, moisture, and the nutrients. Production can be increased the per unit area per unit time. Greater stability of production or of the period can be achieved. The risk due to the disease, pests, and the weeds are the minimized. Soil fertility can be built with the inclusion of legumes and intercropping systems. Labor peaks can be distributed over the entire crop during the period. Intercropping system providing the farmers with the balanced food and the meets is the domestic needs in the multiple cropping system. The main objective of the multiple cropping is the intensive cropping with the available resources is the given environment. For the success of the multiple cropping program from the productivity point of the view, proper choice crop variety is essential. Crops should be arranged in such a way that temporary immobilization of the plant nutrients and the depletion of the nutrients from the same layer of the soil do not occur. Similarly, crops which is at the larger quantities of each discomposable residues in the which is benefit the succeeding crop with the available nutrients should be included. Rainfed areas, the selection of the crops and varieties by the farmers in rainfed areas mainly depend on the amount of the rainfall received, the length of the rainy season, and the type of the soil. In general, for soils with the composed subsoil, high yield of the upland, Kharif in the Rabi season on the safflower grows while the Rabi heavy black in the soils, barley the mustard, Anglorum is the preferable wheat in the Rabi and the current planted region. The cropping intensity varies follows the amount of the rainfall received 500 to 655 mm with the 100 mm soil storage the capacity. Single monsoon crop, mainly monsoons and the post-monsoon sorghum and fats, sorghum daily irrigated areas. In irrigated areas growing the second or third crop depend not only on the availability of the irrigation water, but also one of the soil type and climatic condition. Systematic research has been initiated on multiple cropping to find out of the suitable potential cropping pattern in irrigated areas. In delta areas, rice falls in the traditional cropping pattern with a short duration of the seeds are the broadcast in the standing crop office 10 to 15 before the harvest. The pulse seeds are the germinate with the available soil moisture and the establishment process and the before of the rice crop harvested. Effect on soil properties, physical properties, reduce the direct impact of the rain drops, soil dispersion, surface sealing, the crust formation. This helps the easy establishment of the crop planted. Soil erosion due to the runoff the water and the minimized in the helps of the maintaining the fertile soils. The presence of crop stables and minimized and helps of the maintaining the fertility of the soils. The presence of the stables in the places in the soil through the structure of the soil and keeps the soil in the favorable conditions. Chemical properties. Intensive crop without the adequate manuring and fertilizers may be depleted the soil, produce sustainability. Even the crop reduces the return the soil and the legumes included in the system and the nitrogen through the root nodules. And intensive cropping without the adequate fertilization will not have lost the law. Extended depletion of the soil varies the type of the crop, including the multiple cropping program. Relay cropping refers to interplanting or sowing of the second crop before the harvesting of the first crop. It is likely relay the race, which is the croplands of the land to the next crop with a quick succession. The purpose of this the technique is to the plant and the next crop will within the time realize its the potential yield. It has been the practiced under the irrigated condition and the occasionally in humid climate as the means of maximizing the use of the resources like land, water, time. Early observation of the rarely the plant increase at further advantage the rarely crop the efficient of the use of the water. The efficiency of the use of the water and fertilizer increase the residual moisture and nutrients. The growth of the weeds is kept under the control, owing up to the introduction to depths in the shallow unrooted the crops, the properties of the soil moisture, and the plant nutrients is obtained. Inclusion of the legumes crops in the rotation of the rotate. Restoration of the nitrogen status into the soil. Foliage and drop and the leftover stickers in the field and the considerable amount of the organic matter to the soil. The farm labor and the cattle could be the efficiently used. Now preparatory cultivation of the second crop is needed. What are the disadvantages of the crop relay cropping? All the seed bed is not prepared by the rarely relay the crop. The weeds prevent the magnitude problem. The system is generally limited into the initiated areas. Some of the cropping, rarely cropping should be the based on the following condition. Evaluating suitable of the short duration varieties, evolving the varieties with the high yield potential according to the depletion of the pattern nutrients in the soil by the individual crops, water requirements of the crops in the system. What are following of the rarely cropping system is the rice and green crop, rice and the black crop, rice and the linseed. Sequential cropping. Sequence cropping is a double crop or triple quadrennial is the practice showing the crop immediately after the harvest of the first crop. This practice is also the adopted in assured the irrigated condition and also the subhumid areas with the heavy rainfall. Double cropping like the rarely cropping as the rarely have been the practice in the rainfall, seasonally dry semi-arid tropics. Double cropping sequence is the preferred under the following condition. In areas with the pronounced weed intensity, in areas where the post-monsoon crops require the adequate seedbed preparation, conditions where the crop can be grown within the residual moisture, for example, showing up the horse gram after the groundnut of bajra. Under dry farming conditions, the sequential cropping mainly depends on the average annual rainfall of the area, cropping suitability to the drought prevalent system of the agriculture. Some sequence in AP, dryland dry condition, mainly groundnut java, ragi and horse gram, bajra and horse gram, and jowar and the chilies. Kharif falls with the jowar. Crop rotation. Important crop rotation was the release the long time ago into the view of the need of the soil fertility maintenance, prevention of the spreading of the soil, spreading of the soil-borne disease, pests in the weeds, controlling of soil erosion, and the incidence of the balanced program work of the throughout the year. Selection of the crops is given the rotation primarily depends on the type of the farming question. Uh, Mainly, what are the crop rotation is the soil fertility maintained to advantages. The building of the first weeds in the soil borne disease is prevented. The erosion is a control. Prevent or limited the pack of the purification. What is the requirements of the crops? Provision of the balanced program. A work of the throughout the year. Principles the growing of the crops with the differential depths on the rooting system is alternative to the absorb the nutrients from different soil layers. Alternative crops are the susceptibility of the certain diseases with those are the resistant. Selection of the crops in rotation with the due to the consideration and definition of the beneficial effects. Now the crop on the same succeeding crop, these are the effects may be due to the presence of the toxic substance that is the effect of the nutrient supply, the build of the organic matter, soil structure, and the soil microorganisms or the residual soil moisture, alternating the crops of the soil exhaustion of the uh, limitation of the monoculture. Monoculture tends the upset of the nutrient balance in the soil. Fertilizers are not the cheap, easily available of the wherever the end the costly is the less developed. Soil toxin free crop pattern in the semi-arid tropics in the Indian red soils are the low in the nitrogen, phosphorus, and zinc. Potassium is present in the medium high level. Red soils also range from the shallow, the medium depth, and the relatively low water holding capacity.